So advice for calling apartment leasing agents, you're not going to call and ask, do you allow Airbnb? Because they are told by their managers to screen out people who want to do this. They don't understand your business model. Just call first and ask, do they allow corporate leases? Because you are a corporate housing company. And essentially, that's where you want to start. You're going to do all of your negotiations in person from then on. So that would be the advice for on your phone call. I'm not going to get into too much detail on the strategy because I'll spend 45 minutes to an hour with somebody on the phone coaching them one-on-one on exactly what to say, exactly how to say it, and in what order, and what to look at in the lease. And so this requires a playbook in order to get that done. And you can book a call with me and we can talk about this one-on-one, but eventually this will be in a course if you don't want to do a one-on-one call. So stay tuned. Hopefully, my advice to not oversell this and to not be so like, hey, I'd love to Airbnb your space over the phone. Cold calling is one of the worst ways to sell people. You want to do it in person, especially if you have a good professional demeanor. It's going to be much more effective selling people or negotiating terms on what you want to do with their property. Remember, you're competing across your entire value delivery chain. So it's not just about getting that $1,000 booking, right, and making your profitability there. It's about all the other little things. Like, do you clean your own homes? Do you have housekeepers that you pay full time? Do you outsource to a third party like a housekeeping company? How much are you paying them and how? Are you paying per unit or are you paying by the hour? You optimize this for profitability. How are you getting your supplies? Do you manage your inventory poorly and then you have to use Prime Now and have people race you or use Favor here in Texas where people have to deliver you stuff last minute, and then you have to pay a markup and a service fee in order to have these supplies delivered? How many mistakes are you making that cost you little bits of money? Those things. Of course, just like that, occupancy. Are you at 100% occupancy, 96, 92%? Are you managing your prices well so that way you get every single booking that you can get and you bleed every dollar out of your occupancy that you can get, for example, there. Also, you should optimize all of your processes so that way you don't lose money in your processes, just like your cleaning fees. Check-ins, checkouts should be optimized. How you run your staff, at scale, do you have a property manager who manages a certain number of properties? How do you handle overnight communication? Do you have somebody that you pay by the hour overnight, or do you third party do a call center for a little bit cheaper? And that's something that's not relevant to all of you. Do you have 5 or 10 properties? You're not going to hire a call center necessarily or a property manager yet necessarily to run your portfolio, but this is something to consider. Also, are you filing resolutions with guests when they stain your bed sheets or your pillowcases? Are you asking them for $10 or $12 at a time, or are you just letting it go? Don't let it go. Every time that somebody costs you money that you are allowed to get that little bit of money back, just open up the resolution. And if you're afraid of somebody leaving you a bad review, open up the resolution, be nice about it, and then wait 2 weeks and then escalate it to Airbnb 2 weeks later after they can't review you for it, right? As long as you started that resolution and said, hey, these bed sheets were stained or these pillowcases were stained, I'm going to send you a request for the $15. Can you, give us this back, please, because we had to pay for new pillowcases. If you say it nicely and you don't offend them, and then they decline it, wait the 2 weeks and then escalate it to Airbnb. Now you're safe from a bad review about it. Make sense? So these 5 aspects will make sure that you make every single possible dollar. Your operating costs will be lower than other people's because you run your business the right way. You'll get booked more frequently because your space is more attractive. You'll be seen more because you have proper SEO. And if Airbnb isn't good enough, you'll also have other ways to get bookings. Hire a dedicated housekeeper. And if you cannot afford to pay somebody full-time by the hour because they won't get enough work from you, then go on to Facebook forums, find other Airbnb hosts, and ask them if they would like to collectively hire a housekeeper or 2 together, okay? And you will collectively manage, as a group of hosts, a full-time employee or 2, okay? You're gonna contract them in this case. So this way, you can be more competitive because a large part of our business model is being price competitive and staying solvent at lower costs, because there will come times where you have to drop your price to get a booking. And if you are afraid to drop your price below, say, $70 because your cleaning fee is $60 or $80 or something crazy, then you will get $0 for that night because your costs are too high. If you can pay somebody by the hour, say $12 or $13 an hour, or $10, depending on your market, and whatever the competitive rate is for a cleaner, you can get that cleaning done for $15 to $30 instead, right? That allows you to drop your rates when you have to. You'll also be more profitable instantly. Every single reservation you have will have like $30 to $50 more profitability hypothetically because of this type of price drop. This allows you to do more things that other hosts cannot. So if you cannot afford one on your own, find some other hosts, group together, and do it.
So let's kind of go over the facts of running an Airbnb business at scale and why you would need one. Because honestly, if you have 2 or 3 properties and you're going to go to sleep at night and you're going to get a phone call once in a great while, you might be fine with that, right? You might be okay with the 3 a.m. phone call from a guest once or twice a week. But at 30 or 40 or 50 properties, this is where you're like, I can't handle all the business. It's a 24-hour job. And that's when you start wanting to hire employees and change the nature of your business model. And that's cool. But you shouldn't be hiring somebody virtual, because one big fact about running an Airbnb property or business is it's the housekeepers that pretty much do everything, right? They show up to your property, they fix everything, or they tell you if something needs to be fixed, they restock your stuff, they help you kick guests out if they overstay their welcome, stuff like that. So those housekeepers then need a manager. That manager handles all the organization and the operations locally. And if anything really serious needs to happen after the cleaners clock out for the day, that manager is the one that could be there to help still. And so instead of hiring a virtual assistant, your first goal is to hire a local manager per city that you have your operations in, right? This is going to save you a lot of trouble in the future. So we hire a housekeeper per 5 units we have. And then we hire a property management personnel person when we have about 15 units plus per city. And then if that person is too busy, like if we have more than 15, like say 30 units in one city, we then hire what's called a reservations coordinator. That is this proactive role to contact all the guests that are arriving for the city to make sure that they've read their check-in guide, the house rules, and make sure that everything is going to go well. And that lowers the amount of work that manager has to do because guests weren't doing their job as far as check-in goes. So that covers you most of the hours of the day, right? The manager gives your cleaners the schedules in the morning. The cleaners go show up around noon or earlier, and they let you know if there's any problems. The manager handles them all the way till 3 or 4 p.m. when there's check-in time. Then the manager and the reservation coordinator field all the guest issues between 4 a.m. and 11 p.m. or midnight. And that's how you get most of your hours of the day covered by employees.
When there's a lot of Airbnb properties left to get booked, you're kind of at the whim of Airbnb. If they're going to put you on the first page or second page, you can get more bookings. But if you don't have good placement on Airbnb and you never get seen, you don't get booked, right? So let's bypass that. Let's get you front and center. Let's give you extra ways that you have of people find you so you can get booked. And we're going to do this off the Airbnb platform, but with your Airbnb listing, right? The easiest way to get seen is by self-promotion. And if you're the only listing being clicked on, you don't even have to worry about your competition, right? So one of these I've already given you. So we're going to go over it again for all of you who haven't seen this previous video. Optimization with keywords. So it's basically, the long story short, is your listing title and your description, your main first description, is Google indexable. So Google will find your listing and index it based on your description. It's like in your metadata. So we're going to pull up a screencast of a property with a typical salesy title and description that's, kind of like, hi, stay at my place. But we're going to change it because that's not how this world works. You think you're competing against other Airbnb operators on the Airbnb platform, but you're not. You're also trying to get shown on other platforms with your listing. So you can write your copywriting for your description and your title can actually kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. So let's give you some tips on how you can do this. First off, with a title, on Airbnb, if people are looking through different listings, they can't tell how big the beds are. So you can put that there's a king bed in your title and people will click on your listing more on Airbnb. But it also works on Google. I have a listing in Houston that has 2 king beds. It's a 2-bedroom. When people are looking for king-size bed hotels in Houston, my Airbnb pops up on the first page of Google. How awesome is that? So not just king bed, but there's other things that can pop up that people search for hotels that also give you an advantage on Airbnb, like free parking, fast Wi-Fi, with breakfast. Think about other things that you offer, hot tub, or at the pool, or with a gym. Put things in your listing title and in the very beginning of your description that are high-performance keywords for hotels that also are clickbaity for your description, okay? So let's do that first. So optimize those. occupancy limits. So different size buildings have certain size occupancy limits, and of course you say how many people can stay at your property. If you want to limit it to that, you put in your house rules that there cannot be any more than, say, 4 persons in or on your property at any one point in time. The violation of this could lead to the immediate removal of all guests without refund. We're going to bundle all these together. So there is a $200 per day smoking fee for each day you're in the listing smoking when you're not supposed to be. There's a $50 late checkout fee if your checkout is unauthorized to be late. Cost to replace keys or other needed items, such as a parking credential. If somebody destroys a parking credential, it's this amount of money. Or they keep it, it's this amount of money. To replace the keys, it's this amount of money. You're also going to force them to take responsibility now for any other losses that you may incur because they did something wrong. This includes if the person decides not to follow your rules, either checkout, smoking, or anything else. If any non-following of your house rules leads to you having to refund or discount a next guest, they are responsible to pay that as well. It's a game of cops and robbers. And what I mean by this is your guest is allowed to break whatever rules they want to break, right, during this conversation. They can yell, they can scream, they can fight, they can lie. But you, the cop, cannot ever break the rules. It's part of the due process. If you cheat or lie or misrepresent your property, then you are on the hook for that. So be mindful of that. You have to stay high integrity during the negotiation, communication process without fail. Document everything, which means you should do most of your correspondence through the Airbnb platform. Calling the guests and texting them directly is great and all. Calling them is, of course, a much more like intimate way to deal with guests, and so customer service should require like phone calls or being there in person. But when you have an irate guest or somebody that you think you're going to have a problem with and the Airbnb might get involved, immediately just move to communicating in written format only, and the Airbnb platform is the best way to do that. So you want to start on your guest's side and never judge or blame the guest to their face, okay? So essentially you want to kind of approach all of your resolutions empathetically. So when a guest picks up the phone, and maybe like in this case, it's kind of like where we've been dealing with this guest through Demi, one of our hosts, and now I've kind of taken over a lot of the conversation on this. I start on the guest side, right? Even though I know Demi has never done anything to ever wrong a guest once in her life as, a member of our team. She's awesome. Superhost, 5-star, never had an issue, right? So I know that this one guest, this anomaly, is not Demi's fault. I already know it. But I can't really start with the guest that way. I'm not going to be combative at that guest just because I want to defend my employee. You need to start on their side if you want this to go, the way that it should. If the guest is being combative and just relentless and wanting to push you and try to get things from you, etc., and there's nothing else you can do to help this guest, use what in sales we call the takeaway clause. You'll say, "I'm sorry, Mr. Person or Miss Ma'am, that we're not able to help you, and we've tried everything we can. It's unfortunate, but I will cancel your reservation right now, and you can leave right now. You can leave this very minute since we can't help you. So I hope that works for you." And by taking this reservation away, they're like, "Oh crap, I'm going to lose my reservation," and then they get super upset internally. They're like, "Oh man, this is not going the way that I want it to go," because a lot of times they're just trying to get free stuff, concessions, and things out of you. But in this case, you take their reservation away, and they may just settle down and go, "Oh no, I've pushed as far as I can push."
No, absolutely not. Airbnb Plus, they will try to force you to make certain you have to do certain stuff with the space, and they make you follow certain rules. Like, I don't even believe work collection's worth it because you have to be moderate cancellation booking policy. And I'm not dropping down to moderate for work collection. Sorry, out.
Strict all day.
Yep. So if you want more money, diversify and get on booking.com. Right? Instead of jumping through every single pony trick that Airbnb wants, because even staying Superhost, you might have to make compromises you don't want to have to make for your pocket to stay Superhost. You can always just make a new account and be Superhost again later. I mean.